Hey everyone, welcome to our most recent episode of Frontlines Corner. And I definitely feel like I'm reporting from the front lines of what's going on in the innovation sector and venture capital. We figured since we're in the middle of New York Tech Week and Tech Week generally, and also at the very beginning of Q4 of 2023, which will certainly be a year that we all remember for various reasons, that we would check in and just see what's going on in the sector and what advice we might have for founders as well as for our colleagues out there in the space. So I wanted to start with just the fact that I think a lot of what I'm hearing is still very much people on the defensive. And I think that accrues both to startups and also to venture firms and even to LPs. And of course, that chain, that daisy chain is all related. And so, one of the things we talked about months ago, was that the guidance that was out there for startups was whether you feel really good about the situation or not, whether you feel really confident about the business or not, it's about ensuring that you can extend your runway, cut burn down, and make sure that you can stay really focused. That last part is something I want to really emphasize, especially when you're in a time of resource paucity or just resource uncertainty. There's a real motivation to focus and to resource your breakthroughs. And those are still happening. We have a great company in our portfolio that I won't name directly, that has been focused on a couple of different versions of their product. And I think finally had a breakthrough a couple weeks ago where they said, look, the success we're having is on this part of the product. Everybody on that team is about this. If you are doing something and it's not related to selling more of this particular product, then question why you're doing it. I think that's really smart because when you just don't know when the next check might come in, then being super focused and making sure that all of the musculature of your business is on the things that are working is really important. That, by the way, also applies to VCs. We are, in many cases, looking defensively at our portfolio to make sure we keep everybody in the game and keep everybody on high ground during a time of relative uncertainty. And I think that means that you see a lot of VCs looking into their portfolios, making sure that they're allocating capital to protecting companies there. And that may be part of the reason, by the way, if you're a startup looking for capital, that VCs are slow to get back to you, is that they're focused internally still. Not to say that there's not deal activity going on, but certainly every VC, ourselves included, are making sure that our existing portfolios are well defended, because that's our first duty is to the companies that are already in the family. A couple of things about what to expect. I do think that there still needs to be the rest of the expectation reset percolating. I think that there's still some startups that send us comps from 2021 for valuation, and our immediate reaction is that's nice for those people in that yesteryear, but that is not relevant to this year. And people are looking at different metrics of success, much more focused, as we all know, on things like pathway to profitability, on revenue, on quality of revenue and unit economics, and much less on simple user aggregation or just the future promise of a product that is launching. I do think we're seeing a lot more structure in rounds. We're leading a round right now that has some structure around it. And I think that's not a bad thing as long as the structure is done in a fair way. And it makes sense and has logic. Structure for structure's sake, or just a complicated transaction, or to be punitive, can really have a cooling effect on a financing. But if used appropriately to focus in on de-risking key parts of a deal, it can actually increase liquidity towards a company and make it more successful for that company or more likely for the company to be successful. I think we also, as directors and officers, need to remember that times like these ratchet up the importance of the seriousness of things like board service. When times are good and everything is going well, it's easy to be on a board and just say, hey, sounds like everything's good. What can we do to help around here? At times like these, when companies are looking and should intelligently be considering plans B through Z, having a really tight, transparent relationship between officers and directors is really important. And that includes supportiveness in both directions. Directors really need good information and warning. Surprises are terrible. That sort of thing is really important for the officers of a company to remember, and the founders. But it's equally important for boards to remember to, if possible, especially in structured or down rounds, to think about preserving the founder incentive, to refresh the senior leadership, et cetera. And again, using structure to do that is really good. A couple final thoughts on this. The macro environment is full of surprises. I mean, we all see what's going on, the absolutely terrifying tragedies in Israel and the Middle East. Many of us are still focused, especially in the startup world, on Ukraine. There's many things to worry about out there, like climate change and, increased poverty and threats to democracy. I mean, and the list goes on. And I think we need to focus in on helping what we can help and trying not to be distracted by the things we can't help, especially narrowly as we think about running companies and investing in companies. And that's the best advice I can give. There's causes people care a lot about that are really distracting right now, and for good reason. But in terms of narrowly construing our relationship with managing companies and investing in companies, it's about focusing on the things you can do and not trying to help the things you can't. And then finally, I think I'm an optimist at heart, and there's seeds of greatness in times like these. There is the impetus to refocus and to become more efficient. There is the ability to reset potentially bloated or badly construed cap tables and really make sure that everybody who's still on the team is motivated and believes in the company. And I think there's a time for us also to remember and focus on good mental health and good practices to keep everybody in the fight. It's been a really frustrating year. I think we need to kind of sit with that, be comfortable with the fact that it's been stressful and really hard. Even the best companies with the most exciting prospects have had a challenging year. And so with all the things we talked about in mind today, I do think the seeds of greatness are in a time like this. And this is the time where, no secret, a lot of great companies can be born, a lot of great investments can be made.